Hello everybody. It's great to see so many people with us today. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody see me? Please just type yes in the chat section so I know that you can see and hear me well. Great. Thanks, Anna, Emily. Thank you all. Welcome everybody to our webinar about terms and services. My name is Elena and I'm part of SiteGround's marketing team. Today with me is Abby Clement, who is the head of content at our partners from Iubenda, and also Andrea Gianangelo, who is the founder and CEO of Iubenda. They have prepared lots of useful information for you today, and they will tell you more about Iubenda services and, of course, answer your questions after the presentation is over. Before I give the word to Abby and Andrea, I just wanted to let you know that we're recording the whole session. You will be able to watch a replay right after the webinar, and we will also send you the recording to the email that you used to register. Of course, if you have any questions, just add them in the ask a question section below. And I think that's pretty much on my side. I will now mute myself and focus on the chat and give the stage to Abby and Andrea. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Okay, hi everyone. Really happy to be talking to you guys today about terms and conditions. Very exciting topic. So just before we start, I just want to make a few remarks. So you can post your questions at any time in the questions section while I'm doing the presentation, whatever comes to mind, and we'll try to get to them in the end. You can use the upvote function to get the most out of the session. If someone asks a question that's relevant to you, please feel free to upvote it. And also I have to give this disclaimer, obviously, since I don't know your individual situations, this webinar can't be considered to be one-to-one legal advice in any way. And also it may contain simplifications to make it as accessible as possible to everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and talk a little bit about Iubenda. So we provide compliance solutions, and we have over 65,000 clients in over 100 countries that are using our legal software solutions and direct support for legal compliance. So we work with everyone from individual freelancers, medium-sized businesses to enterprise companies, and we create solutions that can work for every single kind of business, taking a 360-degree approach to compliance. So not just focusing on any one law, but making sure that that you're more or less covered in an easily accessible way. Our products and all of our legal texts are written by lawyers, by our international team, to make sure that you're getting, let's say, that you're covered, that you're well covered, and that it's optimized also for business processes. So that's a little bit about us, and we can go into that a little bit later on. And now I'm just going to talk about the agenda and then dive into the presentation. So we're going to talk about how using terms and conditions can protect your online store, some important legal basics for e-commerce, how Iubenda can help you, and then we have the question and answer session. So I really hope that this is going to be as helpful as possible, but if something isn't covered, feel free to ask it.
Yeah, right. I just want to add to what Abby said. Basically, what we do is, if you want, you can go to our website, which is Iubenda.com, and we offer tools for generating privacy policy, terms and conditions, to get a cookie consent, a banner, and everything that basically a website or an app needs to do to become compliant all over the world. Okay, so that's in a gist. And now we'll go through what the actual requirements are. So even if you do not want to use our service, you can use a lawyer, you can use another service. this webinar will give you the basic information in terms of what needs to go into the T&Cs, or terms and conditions, or terms of use, however you want to call them. And then we'll also briefly touch base on how we solve the problem for those that decide to use our tool. Go ahead, Abby.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrea. So first of all, what exactly are terms and conditions? I mean, terms and conditions a lot can get lost in all of the text. So terms and conditions basically allow you to set the rules about how your product, service, or content can be used, and in a legally binding way. So essentially, it governs the contractual relationship between a provider of a service, you, and your users. It is a contract in which you, the owner, get to clarify the conditions of use for your particular service or product or content. Now, as Andrea sort of touched on just now, there are various names for this type of contract: terms of use, terms of service, end user license agreement, and so on. So if you see these, you're all sort of referring to the same thing. Now let's take a look at who needs terms and conditions. Now we say everyone from bloggers to e-commerce, software as a service, and enterprise businesses can benefit from setting terms of use or terms and conditions. However, it should be noted that in some cases it can be mandatory, and we're going to go into those. And something to note here is just that terms and conditions are relevant in general for avoiding any kind of misuse, but they do have a specific relevance in terms of applicable law, and this brings us to e-commerce. So I'm going to explain a little bit more about what that means. I know it's all very mysterious right now. So not only are terms and conditions crucial for protecting you from potential liabilities, and just to pause here and touch on this point, where I mentioned before that terms and conditions, they set your rules for using your product, service, content in a legally binding way. It is in fact a contract between you and your users. So what this does is it allows you to have written and agreed more or less from your users that they agree to your terms for using their site. So it protects you from liabilities, let's say from something like misuse, something like that, because you have the proper use outlined. For example, one of the things that you'd have outlined in your terms and conditions within your document on your site. Now, aside from that, they also contain legally mandated information, and this information can be related to things like consumer rights, withdrawal or cancellation disclosures, which is particularly relevant to e-commerce. A valid terms and conditions or terms of service document is generally required whenever you have complex issues at stake, such as with e-commerce, where sensitive information like payment data is processed. So terms and conditions legally typically contain legal information related to the conditions of the sale, disclosures, things related to methods of payment, shipping, delivery, withdrawals, meaning someone deciding that they no longer want to purchase something, returns, cancellations of subscriptions or whatever. And these things are commonly required by consumer protection regulations globally.
So, I mean, to summarize that, if you have a simple website that basically it could be the website for a shop, an offline shop, or for like a lawyer, something like that, then the need for T&Cs is pretty low, except in edge scenarios. But once you get off from that, and let's say you have a blog. For a blog, for instance, you may want to have T&Cs to regulate how your content can be used, if it can be reproduced, if it can be mentioned, etc. Then let's say you have an e-commerce, then it becomes definitely a necessity. It's definitely so in Europe, but that's also so in most legislations. because you need to provide information in terms of how returning goods, that if it's a physical e-commerce, returning goods works, or if it's an e-commerce that provides a service like a subscription or digital goods. At the same way, you need to provide terms that inform users on how recurring payments work, things like that. And that's another big use case for having T&Cs. Or if you have a community, for instance, and you want to regulate what's the responsibility, what's the liability of content that is posted or pictures, okay? And in that case, you want to make sure that those who post respect certain rules, and that will be something that goes into the T&Cs. Again, you could have classifieds website or marketplace. Again, those are all situations where T&Cs are pretty much, if non-mandatory by law, are highly recommended, okay? Because they can get you out of potential situations that will be sticky without the protection that comes from T&Cs that allow you to set the rules of what you're liable for in those scenarios. Okay, thank you, Abby.
Okay, thanks again, Andrea. So I know that Andrea said a lot, and we're actually going to go into a lot of these scenarios and touch on some things a little bit later. So if you're already thinking of some questions, feel free to add those again to the question tab, and we're going to get into how they protect you in a few minutes. So as Andrea touched on, and as I was previously mentioning, under most countries' consumer laws, when you're selling to consumers, in addition to the typically default required privacy disclosures and things like that, that you'll have on your site, you also need to inform customers of the following: return, refund details, warranty, guarantee information, safety information, including information on proper use of your product, or even content, which is something that's useful to know. Let's say you're giving directions or advice or something like that. There are cases where someone might misinterpret the information that you've written or the advice that you've given, and you don't want to be liable for someone getting hurt due to misinterpreting what you've written and things like that. So it's, this is another area where you might want to clarify that, make a disclaimer or avoid liability in this way. Also, things like the terms of delivery of your product and service. Identifying information is quite important: legal address, business name, any industry-related legal disclosures also typically go here. If you're, let's say, in the medical field, or you might be in finance, or whatever, depending on the country you're in and depending on the industry that you're in, there might be specific legal disclosures that you need to make. And this is another location where you can add this information. Another thing is things like the rights of the consumer in terms of withdrawal rights, as well as seller contact details, email address, phone number, things like that. So these are things that all typically go within your terms and conditions. So going back into how terms and conditions actually protect you. Terms help you with handling user-related issues when they arise, but primarily aid in preventing them in the first place by setting a legally binding agreement between you and your users on the subject of your rules for accessing or using your service. And something that we often say sometimes when going through these webinars is that out of all of the documents that you have on your site, privacy policy, cookie policy, a lot of them are, let's say, they are for creating a good relationship between you and your users and protecting you in terms of complying with the law. But out of all these documents, terms and conditions is the only document that is specifically meant to protect primarily you. So I would argue that it's one of the most important documents to have available on your site when it's applicable. Now, going into some of the things that Andrea mentioned before, disclaimers, limitations of liability. I also touched on some of them. Copyright rules is also something that you might want to have stated on your site. If you're allowing users to share your content, your images, or whatever you might want to set limitations on how they can share this. If you need to be attributed, if you need to be linked to, if that information can't be modified from its original form. If you have affiliates, that's also something you want to consider. You don't want people making claims about your product that you might not be able to back up. So all these things are things that are worth considering. Another thing is account creation and termination conditions, accepted behavior. Let's say someone is hogging all the bandwidth or they're misusing your site in some way and you want to terminate their account. You don't want that person to then try to legally challenge you because you didn't set the rules of what would constitute termination of an account. So that's something that's also useful to keep in mind, especially if you have membership on your site or you allow users to create accounts, to create content like comments, or to interact with other users in a direct way. You might want to set rules for the behavior that's accepted. Another really interesting one is setting law of governance. And with this one, I do like to always say that you want to keep in mind that while terms and conditions does give you a lot of flexibility in terms of the law, it does not override applicable law. So you can't use terms and conditions to do something like completely disregard GDPR requirements if you have EU users. It's not going to erase that. The law where it applies will still apply to you.
Or even for e-commerce, if you are selling to the EU from outside the EU, you cannot circumvent EU laws in terms of, for instance, return rights, which are pretty specific in the EU, even more in the UK. So this doesn't save you from that. So that's a good remark from him.
So yeah, that's really important to note. So you might be thinking, okay, so how does setting the law of governance actually help me? So let's take a look at, for example, the US. So in the US, there are very few, let's say, federal level consumer protection laws. There are some things that apply, but a lot of them apply on a state level. Let's say you're based in Ohio or something like that, and you have users from all over the US, but you also have users based in, you have them in various states. In certain cases, it might be beneficial to you to state that your contract is under, let's say, Ohio law, as that might have more favorable conditions for you in regards to some portion of your terms and conditions. So in a case like that, it can be quite helpful. Let's say a user from a state with more strict laws does challenge your terms and conditions, challenges your contract. You can then say, well, my contract is provided under the terms of Ohio law. So this is sort of a really rough example of how setting law of governance can be useful. There are other ways as well, but it is important to note, and it's one of the more interesting parts of setting terms and conditions. Very useful tool. So needless to say, with all this information in mind, terms and conditions are fundamental in many cases to mounting an adequate and proper defense. And we say this because without terms and conditions, there is nothing. You don't have, aside from the law, if you are challenged legally, it becomes sort of a situation where it's up to the courts to decide, and that can swing either way. It goes on a case-by-case basis, and then you're at the mercy of the courts. If you do have this contract, you can say, well, this is what was agreed to. So let's take a look at what terms and conditions should say on a basic level. So the first thing, obviously, is the identification of the business. And this is important because this is a legally binding contract. So you do want to make sure to correctly identify yourself. You want to also include a description of the service that your site or app provides, information on things like risk allocation, liability, any disclaimers, as we mentioned, warranty and guarantee information where that's applicable. In the case of e-commerce, it's very applicable. The existence of any withdrawal rights, again, if applicable. Conditions of use or conditions of purchase, things like age requirements are important. Location-based restrictions, for example, especially if you're selling something, let's say you sell vaping devices or something related to tobacco, there might be legal requirements as to where you can and cannot sell this product. Maybe you can't cross state or country lines. There might be region-based requirements and restrictions. So these are all things you want to consider. The terms of delivery of your product or service, refund policy, exchange, termination of service and related information. And again, some of these are legally required depending on where you are. In the EU, you definitely want to pay attention to including information on withdrawal rights, warranty, and guarantee information. Actually, you'd want to do this wherever you're based, because where you don't provide this information, usually, let's say the consumer can have even more favorable conditions. So let's say you don't actually distinctly say that it is up to this date, 14 days or whatever. You might end up in a situation where the return period is extended because you did not specify. Another thing,
specifically talking about the EU, for instance, I see that there is people from the UK. If you don't state if you're in e-commerce and you're selling goods and you don't state that the return, customers can return their goods within 14 days, then they get 1 year and 14 days to return their goods instead of 14 days. Okay, so there is a pretty good incentive to actually write that it's 14 days in the T&Cs, otherwise it becomes 1 year more. Okay, or another thing is that a lot of e-commerces wonder how to behave when users return goods and who needs to pay for the courier to return the goods. Okay, and the shipping is still on charge on the customer. As long it's charged on the customers as long as you say it is in the T&C. So the law doesn't force you in the EU to pay for the delivery when returning goods, when the customer wants to return goods, as long as you say this in the T&Cs. If you don't, then you need to pay for the return. So that's another very big reason to state it and to do your T&Cs right if you don't want to basically end up with these extended rights for the user.
Right, that's a really, really important point. And consider that if you do have an e-commerce store, this sort of thing can add up quite quickly, right? You have tons of customers. Let's say you have 50 returning an item or something like that, and because it's not stated, you have to pay all of these return costs. It's also just, as he said, quite a good incentive to include the relevant information. Another thing that you want to include is information related to methods of payment. So that was quite a mouthful. And as you can probably guess, because terms and conditions are so important and so extensive, they tend to touch on, let's say, multiple types of laws and legislations. So whereas privacy-related documents might just touch on the relevant privacy-related laws, with terms and conditions, you might be looking at things related to age-based restrictions. You might be looking at consumer law, copyright law, quite a lot of things. So it becomes quite complicated, quite fast to know which things you need to be looking at, what applies to you, and then to put all of that together. Obviously, one really good option is always to go with a lawyer that you work with one-on-one. But in cases, let's say you might be going for something else or where that's not feasible, an excellent solution would be our terms and conditions generator. And just before I get into what that does, I love to give a little bit of background here. So we do compliance products and we do a privacy policy generator, we do consent solution, a number of products to help you with overall compliance. But this product has been one that was requested from us for quite some time. It was in quite high demand and it took us over 2 years to develop this. It's really, really robust, really powerful, and a big part of the reason why it took so long to prepare is because it touches on so many different laws, and we wanted to make something that could apply to so many different types of businesses. So as with all of our compliance solutions, our lawyers work directly on this. The text is written by lawyers on an international level. It's available in 8 languages, and we'll get into those details. But this is one product that we're really proud of, and it is incredibly powerful. So the base description here is it's a solution to draft, obtain, and maintain your terms and conditions for websites and apps. All of the documents are responsive, and as most of our solutions, they are auto-updating, and we keep up to date with all of the latest laws, legal requirements, changes in laws, and we update the documents so that you don't have to, let's say, always log in and figure out what law has changed and do that yourself. Another thing worth noting here is that you have a centralized dashboard, and you don't have to pay every single time you log in. You can modify your documents as needed as your business changes and grows and modifies. You can log in at any time and simply update and add new clauses to your document. It's completely dynamic. As I mentioned, it's updated when the law changes. There is a guided setup to help you include everything that you need. And as always, our customer service is available via live chat, via email to help you if there's something you don't understand. It's optimized for e-commerce apps and complex scenarios like a marketplace and software as a service. You can customize it from over 100 carefully crafted clauses, and a lot of these you can mix and match to come up with hundreds of variations, so it can be as unique and as specific as you need for your particular business. It's available in 8 languages, and we're always expanding. And we do have plug-in and go integrations for popular e-commerce systems like eBay, Shopify, and Amazon. So these are like plug-and-go clauses that have a lot of information typically needed for these platforms put in there. And of course, you can customize as you need. So because of this webinar, we're extending also to everyone here a special pricing offer, which is a 20% discount on your first purchase. And in terms of the overall pricing, maybe Andrea, you want to talk about the price for our terms and conditions?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get terms and conditions, and you also have included the privacy policy and the cookie notice, so basically in a full package for what you need to be compliant internationally. It's just 99p per year, to which you can remove the discount. So that will be basically 80-ish per year. And that gives you, again, privacy policy, terms and conditions, and also the cookie notice up to a certain traffic tier. And you can take a look at our pricing on our site or engage with a live chat for anything. And I mean, don't as Abby said, don't mistake it for just the typical generator that gives you this boilerplate text. It's a lot more, and it's really highly customizable and highly powerful, and it really covers very well all of the most subtle cases. And also of the international legislations and especially, I mean, I see people from all over the world in the chat, and there's a good chance that your regulation has been analyzed by our lawyers, and that's why, again, we took some time to develop this product, and also why over 60,000 clients already trust our services. Yeah, now I think we can cover some questions.
Just before we jump into that, I just wanted to also expand, because we said 99 per year, so that works out to a little bit, that's the regular pricing, that might work out to around like $9 a month or something like that. And with the discount, it's even less. So that's roughly, just to break it down, because I know the per year pricing can be a little bit confusing sometimes, that works out to around $9.
Yeah, that's correct. You can also pay monthly, and with a discount, that will be something like $7 per month, and you're covered from a legal point of view.
So yeah, so we're really excited to be able to offer it at even that discounted price. And once again, once you create an account, you also have access within that central dashboard to all of our products, including our privacy policy generator, which has a free version if you want to like try it out and so on. You have access to around 4 clauses. As well as our cookie policy, and all of our products are accessed from within that central dashboard. So it's really easy for you to just add whatever it is you need.
By the way, those amounts were in US dollars. Sorry for not specifying that. And if you want just the privacy policy, so basically you can create a privacy policy for free with some limitations, and you can use the cookie banner and cookie system for cookie content system for free. So that's a basic setup. Then if you need a license for all the features on the privacy side, then that's $29 per year, again, US dollars. And if you want to upgrade from that to also get the T&Cs, that include also everything said before, there will be either with a discount, it will be 7 per year or 7 per month, sorry, or around 80 per year.
All right. Okay. So with that discount, and if you take the terms and conditions, it also includes the privacy policy. Just to clarify, so it's actually one of the better deals.
And by the way, to get the discount, just type that URL on your browser, and you will get it. And you can also find the discount in the marketplace of SiteGround under perks. It's always available over there, so it's it's there for you to find. Someone asks if the pricing applies to multiple sites. We have quantity pricing for multiple sites. You can check our site, and the discount applies to those too. So we have heavy discounts if you have many websites. So then that will be on top of this 20%.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I'm gonna go to the first question here.
Yeah, I mean, I can read, and maybe we can reply together. Yeah, I want to take this one. So someone is asking, when you go to a website and they ask you to agree to the terms and condition, do they keep any proof that you agreed to it as proof? And so the answer is that depends on the website. But what you want to ask yourself is, will that proof be useful to you in case there is law enforcement asks you, or in Europe you have authorities that could ask you, and it could be privacy authorities too. This could apply to privacy policy too. And the answer is that you definitely should, because you should keep a proof, because definitely they will ask. And the point is that, for instance, for GDPR, it's clearly stated in the GDPR that the burden of proving, and GDPR is the European privacy law, by the way, for those that are connecting from international states. The GDPR clearly states that you need to be able to prove that you've acquired content, okay? So whenever you acquire content, whether it's to your privacy policy, to T&Cs, you should save that content somewhere along with the legal documents that the user accepted, a copy of those, and a copy of the form that the user was presented with, okay? And you can do that autonomously, or we also provide a solution that's designed exactly for that. That is called consent solution, okay? And by the way, this discount also applies to that. So if you want, you can go to our website, Iubenda.com, and shop around and see if this is something that you want to use. It's definitely recommended if you have your business is a certain scale where your risk of not doing it might start to be significant.
Yeah, so just
do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to add to that. So in a practical sense, in terms of applying this, Often one approach or one, let's say, best practice approach might be to have a checkbox on your forms when someone's signing up to use your site. Of course, never pre-checked. So when they click on that agree to terms and conditions, how our solution can work, let's say you don't want to figure out how to keep this proof manually. How our solution works is that it allows you to hook into that form. So it's then going to take that email address and also the fact that they checked on the box, so they have agreed to your terms and conditions, and it then stores a record of a unique keys applied to that individual user, along with the contact information and the fact that they consented. And then it keeps a record of that. If that changes, or if you've changed your terms and conditions, it's also going to keep a record of the version of your terms and conditions. So it's really complete, and it allows you to go into the dashboard and look at all of your consents and things like that. So just in case you were wondering how you would technically set that up, that's one easy way to do it, by a checkbox.
Yeah, but the not necessarily a checkbox. Also, because, for instance, in the US, you don't strictly need to acquire consent through a checkbox. You can also spare a checkbox. So that's more of a EU example, but it's not strictly just that.
Yes, it's just one way. So the next question here is, what should be included for a service business such as a therapist, life coach, etc.? No products or shipping involved. I mean, just off the bat here, of course, not giving any direct legal advice, I would say it's really important for you to include things like disclaimers and limitation of liability, because you're giving advice. And this is something that can be misinterpreted, misused, and so on. Another thing that would go in here is if you are a member of any professional associations, or if in your country your field requires you to make certain disclosures, any registration numbers and things like that, you want to also make that available. I mean, you may have to make it available on your site on the footer. I know the UK has certain requirements in regards to that, but also it would be good to include that information within your identification section of the terms and conditions. Also, you want to consider what you allow people to do with your site. If they can't create an account, then you don't necessarily need to include information on account deletion or something like that. You include your identification, description of your service, your limitations of liabilities, maybe any applicable law. That might be something that's interesting. Maybe something related to copyright, if people can share the information you provide on your site. You might have a blog if you're doing this kind of business. These are some things to consider. As usual, we have a guided setup that can help you along your way, and also our customer care can also help you with this if it's something that...
Yeah, one thing is worth mentioning is that you can play with our generator for free. So you can get an idea about the options that we support and see if you can find those that that suit you. And also, even if you end up purchasing, you can just and you end up not being happy with what you got, you can also ask a refund. So no problems with that. One thing I want to add to what Abby said is that in your case, for instance, refunds don't work the same way as for an e-commerce, because typically, again, this is depending on the actual local legislation that applies to you and your customer. But generally speaking, when a service has been already provided, so the user has signed up for a course or a coaching session, and they've actually watched the course, attended the session, they're not eligible legally to a refund, okay? Because the service has been already provided, and that's also for custom goods, okay? So, and other kinds of services like those that are perishable. So that's something that is specific to this kind of business, and you should know, so that you know what actually the user has right to and what not, okay? So someone asks, I'd love to know how to update website users and buying clients when I update my terms of service or privacy policy. Can it be easily done from my e-commerce suite or another way without having a separate mailing list? So there is not really something specific from the law telling you how to do it, but the idea is that you have to perform a reasonable effort to update them through the means that are available to you. Okay, so definitely put a warning on your site for new users, or you can put a warning on the footer. And if an email is available to you, then you can email your users and set a date when the new terms will actually be enforceable, so that users have a choice of deleting their account or deleting their subscription or whatever. So they have a choice of withdrawing from your service if they don't agree with the change. That is definitely a sensitive thing to do.
Okay, so
yeah.
I guess I'll go on to the next question here. So one question here is, what are the key things, the key items that need to be implemented through terms of use or privacy policies to be GDPR compliant? So this is a really good question, and it brings us to an important point, which is that in terms of the GDPR, which is the privacy law, it's dealing with compliance, you're looking more at things with your privacy policy or your cookie policy, your cookie ban or your cookie notice and things like that. Terms of conditions or terms of use are more, let's say, specific to your business processing and creating an independent contract agreement between you and your users. So things related to privacy law, typically this would more be handled by our other products, which deal with things like the privacy policy, the cookie policy, cookie notice, consent, your consent solution and things like that. Just to touch really quickly here, since it's something that people be interested in terms of what's required in your privacy policy, you're looking at basic information like, and this is on a basic level, who is the owner? So again, identifying yourself, what information is being collected, what is the legal basis for the collection? There are 6 under the GDPR, so you have to have a legal, whether it's consent or something like contractual obligation or legitimate interest. This would go into your privacy policy. The purposes for processing the data, whether that's for analytics, for email marketing, the categories or the sources from which you're collecting this data. And this is also related, or more specifically related to the CCPA, which is the California Consumer Privacy Act. So for the people here from the US or who might have US users, this is something that you want to include in your privacy policy. Also things like which third parties access the information, anything related to cross-border data transfer, what rights users might have, and this can differ under the GDPR or let's say under something like the CCPA, again, which is specific to Californian users, the effective date of the privacy policy. These are just some of the things that would typically go within your privacy policy, as well as listing the specific services and third-party information that you use on your site or who you share the data with. So this is something that's handled by our other product, which is the privacy and our first product, as a matter of fact, the privacy policy generator. And much like the terms and conditions generator, it's quite powerful, allows you to really customize to your particular website. We also have a scanning component within the privacy policy generator, which allows you to scan your website and give you some pointers on what services or clauses you might need to add in order to be compliant. But even if you don't use our product, a good starting point when you're trying to figure out what to include in your privacy policy is to think about, one, your data entry points, so where people are putting in your data, newsletters, sign-up forms, things like that. 2, any third-party services, things like Facebook login, sign-in, analytics, and things like that. So anything that's giving you data as well, which would cover things like analytics, heat maps, and these sort of things. These are all useful things to consider when you're trying to figure out what disclosures you might have to make in terms of the partners that you're working with. But this is just scraping the iceberg, scraping the surface. There's a lot more that go into these documents. Our product makes it super easy, but if you're trying to figure it out on your own, you can always visit our website, and we have tons of documentations explaining everything you need to know about the GDPR and how to comply.
And someone is asking about the pricing, where in the SiteGround marketplace it says $129 per year for the T&Cs and price policy, etc. But if you head over to our website and go to the pricing and then select the business plan, that also gives you the T&Cs, and you can get it for $9 per month or 99 per year, to which you can deduct the discount. Okay, so that brings that to 280 per year.
Yeah.
So that's a nice little trick. Someone asks about foreign transactions and laws and how to implement T&Cs with that. And again, you can hire a lawyer in each legislation, or you can also give a try to our generator that is exactly made for those kind of scenarios and for keeping into account many of the most relevant legislations. Someone also asks how do we know what to include into T&Cs? Should I go through a lawyer? So first of all, this webinar was, I think, maybe gave you some pointers. Something gives you some pointers in terms of what you need to be aware of. But a lot of clients also decide to hire a lawyer and use it in combination with our tool, which might be a good combo, because it gives you the power of our tool and the international coverage, but also the extra safety that an actual lawyer can give you. So that might be something to get the best of both worlds. And by the way, someone was saying before that this is a nice solution for smaller e-commerce. It's definitely so, but consider that our product is also used by very, very large companies, multinational companies even, that of course see different value than what an small e-commerce would, but we're not really compromising on quality at the legal level. So what you get is good for generating the T&Cs of eBay as much as it is for generating them for your small e-commerce.
And I wanted to add really quickly, when you mentioned that some people can choose to use it in combination with a lawyer, but with the added convenience of a product, just to expand on that, what we're really saying here is, because our product is, it's dynamic, so it's software, so it allows you to add clauses and so on as your business grows and expands. That's sort of that extra benefit from just having one static document that's written by your lawyer once. Every time that needs to be changed, or your business expands or gets smaller, that lawyer is going to have to go back in there and amend the contract and redo that. So our product, because it's software, it allows you to very easily update. Also, we do keep an eye on various laws and legislations as they change, and we do also automatically update on our end. And again, our product is written by actual lawyers. So it's really kind of up to you. For some of our larger enterprise customers, sometimes they choose to use their in-house lawyers, and then they use our product as well. I don't know if we can disclose who some of these are, but if you go on our website, on our footer, we do have some of our clients, and you can see some of the names that we work with. But our products are on, I would say, millions of websites at this point, in various products all over the world for every type of business.
Okay, there is someone asking, okay, I'm doing drop shipping, and the company that helps me with drop shipping doesn't refund me the costs of postage when a user returns their goods. How can they do that? And the reason is that what we said about, normally the laws that require you to refund to sustain the shipping costs are either first of all, they're normally for consumers, okay, so not for business-to-business transactions, and that applies even for an e-commerce that sells in Europe, for instance, to businesses. But the point here is that you probably have a contract with your drop shipping company that tells you, so that they have their T&Cs, which is basically a contract. And in the T&Cs between you and the drop shipping company, there is a clause saying that the costs of return are new. Okay, what you can do if this is a problem for you is that T&Cs allow you, even in Europe where you have the most consumer-friendly legislation, even in Europe they allow you to dump this cost on the actual buyer, okay, on your client. Okay, so if that is a problem that is putting a strain on your business, you can say, hey, if you return the goods, you have to pay the postage, okay? And that's legal to do, as long as you make that explicit in the terms and conditions, okay?
I just wanted to add something here in terms of drop shipping, which is that, okay, it's a bit of a strange situation because the user can't return the goods directly to the original supplier because you're drop shipping and you might not want them to know that. It's what you can do, and in some cases I've seen some websites do this. You state in your terms and conditions and also in the return information that the return address might be different from the actual address that it was sent to. Again, you want to specify about who's paying the costs, and depending on where your customers are based, as Andrea said earlier in the presentation, you might want to specify within your documents that they pay the return costs. If your drop shipping supplier is based in China, you might have some help there based on the platform that they're on. You could probably escalate it. Let's say you're using something like AliExpress or Alibaba, you might have some recourse there. But depending on the platform that you're using, or if you're working with them directly, you might not be able to force them because they're based in China. So you might have to look at what the rules are there, especially in regards to the platform. Usually you can enforce there a little bit more because they want to keep a good reputation and they're more willing to kick out bad suppliers. So that's an option, but you're going to have to look into that.
So since we just have 10 minutes left, I'll try to flash answer to as many questions as I can. First one is your price per year? Yes, it is. Every product that we offer is offered on a recurring basis. And the reason is that the documents that we provide are constantly updated, and you can also access update them. So it's a service. It's not something that you download and just forget about it. And that's part of the value that we provide. And we keep our pricing aggressive, but at the same time, we ask you to commit to long-term. And we provide value long-term by, again, updating our product. And these kind of updates may seem like they are not frequent, but they are. We update our terms and pricing policies for our users all the time. And just now there was an earthquake because there is an agreement between US and Europe for transfer data called Privacy Shield, and it was just invalidated. So basically anyone that has processes data between these two states, even if you're in Europe and you have a provider in the US or vice versa, then you are subject to this most likely, and you will have to update your privacy policy. And we make that very easy for clients. So if the visitor does not agree to the terms and conditions, can she still purchase from the site? You can make it so that he doesn't or she doesn't. So it's up to you. You can. It's normal for an e-commerce not to allow you to purchase if you don't accept the T&Cs, and it's perfectly legal too, and actually advisable.
You can do this on that whole sign up or purchasing page where they have to click that they've read and agreed to your terms and conditions, in case you were wondering how to apply it on a practical level.
So someone is asking, should T&Cs be regional specific? It depends. If you want to apply different terms to different areas, regions, you can have T&Cs one per region and set the application scope to just specific countries. And that's one approach, but only if you want to have different terms. but it's also possible to have one T&C for all of them if you want to apply the same terms. Okay, and we support both scenarios, so you can decide. And it's kind of connected. How would your questionnaire determine the best state law for us in the US? We give you some options, but at the same time, if you find that there is something that is not covered, you can also reach out to us and we'll work on adding it. Okay.
Just to add here, it's quite important as well. Consider if you can say that your contract is under a particular state law that your business isn't located or operating in. So that's something that you also need to be aware of. It's a little bit more sure if, okay, your business is based in this place, then you have to choose between, I don't know, leaving it open for the consumer to decide or specifically stating that it applies to where your business is or where you have a subsidiary. But you also do need to pay attention to whether or not you can just pick a state and if that you're not based in any way, and if that would be applicable.
Okay. If the company is registered in one country but offers online services to another, to which law should we comply to? And when you're selling online or entering online transaction of any sort or offering service online, normally the law that applies is the one of the user. So if you're located in the US but you're selling to EU customers, the EU law is something you cannot escape. Yeah, and at the same time, someone asks, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say also with that, sometimes, because we have a post on how to determine your law reference on our help documentation, sometimes the law of where you're based can also apply regardless. If you are based in the EU and you only have US customers, the GDPR still applies to you and you have to extend those protections to the customers. So typically it's like a mixture of where your users are based and where you are based, primarily, as Andrea said, where your users are based. But you do want to kind of look carefully and see if it's a particular regulation that might apply to you in either case. And another thing is that if you're operating in various countries, that might have different languages, and if your site is available in more than one language, then your document needs to be available in each language that your site is available in. So that's important to note. And our generator allows you to do that. It allows you to have the same documents in multiple languages.
By the way, someone was asking instructions on how to apply the discount. So you can visit, I wrote them in the chat. You can visit the link, iubenda.link/SiteGround-en to apply the discount. Then you go to our pricing page, iubenda.com/en/pricing, and then you select the business plan. And I've pasted the links in the chat if you want to check them out. See if there are some more interesting questions. What are the languages? There are 8. You can get a list on our website. It's pretty much on every page. Does your content solution integrate with WordPress? Absolutely yes. We have a WordPress plugin that integrates both with our solution for cookie management and also with our solution for content tracking, for keeping track of proof of content. Okay, so both of them. Okay, we also have plugins for other platforms like Magento or Joomla. Someone is asking about working with kids. That will require another totally different webinar, because legislation for kids is quite demanding from a compliance point of view. So I won't enter that.
But sorry, just to say, we do have some information of it. We don't have time to answer it right now.
Yeah.
But if you go on Iubenda.com and you go on our help section, we have several documents covering the GDPR as it applies to children, and also on our CCPA documentation. If you're based in the US, there's some information there that you have to pay attention to for kids who need opt-in consent under California law. And we also have one that talks about building apps for kids and how
we have 2 minutes
for kids. Sorry, guys.
Someone is asking, should I include in the T&Cs what is included or not in my service? Absolutely yes, they are a great place to do that. Are your services relevant to you and UK laws, GDPR? Yes. Also all the US law, also Australian law, for instance, and many other countries. T&C generator for tour companies. If you sell your tours online through a website, absolutely yes. What about GDPR and COPPA policies? For COPPA, if you mean children, then as Abby said, we have a guide for that. I have an Ultra subscription. I couldn't add a checkbox to agree to the T&Cs. We don't provide the actual checkbox, if I got you right. So you need to, normally all e-commerce or most platforms, CMSs, etc., allow you to add this checkbox, but you can also reach out to our customer care for more help, because I'm not sure I got your case right. So can SiteGround help us draft T&Cs for our company on this platform? Not SiteGround, but that because they do something else. That's because there is us for that, so you can check out our website. Is the T&C downloaded or hosted by you? It's hosted by us, and you get a link so that we can keep it up to date, and also you can keep it up to date.
Also, you have various embedding options. By the way, you can do widget. It comes up with the light box. You can also put it directly in the page on your site. These are all on our website, but you have a lot of different integration options.
Is there a developer package, or will my clients need to purchase their own license for their individual site? You can do both. Definitely, the most convenient option is getting quantity packages that are available on our website, and give you access to really good discounts. So if you have many websites for your clients, that's the way to go.
And another thing just to point out here is that we do have a bit of an affiliate program. Once you create an account and sign up and so on, you get a link that allows you to, if you share it with someone to make a purchase, you get paid 30% and they get a discount as well, which is quite nice. That's something to consider. Some people have made it into a nice side business as well, because they get to provide extra value to their customers, the users, if you're a freelancer.
Okay, so a couple more questions. I have I'm a life coach, and I have a client bill of rights. Do I also need this on my website, or will that be different? Probably many things that you have in this bill of rights is valid on your website too, but then you need to add things about selling something from a distance on an online website, so there will be clauses covering that. What you can also do is you can, for instance, use our T&Cs generator and then add your bill of rights as an attachment, which we do allow, so that you have both without sacrificing either. On your website, you talk about licenses that per website, so one license, one website. We have a pricing based on language and site. If you, there is an FAQ about pricing, and it answers this question, so I invite you to check that out since we're short on time. Let me see if I missed any questions. I think.
Well, anything that's left out, we're going to answer in a blog post.
Yeah, I think I've covered all of the questions that I could. Some they're kind of off topic.
Okay, guys. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming. It was fun. I hope that it was enjoyable and informative for you guys.
Yeah, and thanks for participating from literally all over the world. This was fun. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.